Ladies and gentlemen, privacy is one of the most sacred and powerful choices you can make when it comes to your personal struggles. Too often, we feel the need to voice our hardships to everyone around us, hoping someone will offer a quick fix, validation, or sympathy. But telling people your problems can sometimes do more harm than good. When you hand your pain over to someone who cannot truly help you carry it, you expose your wounds in ways that can make them feel deeper and more raw. Privacy, on the other hand, allows you to protect your inner world, creating a sacred space where healing can take place without outside interference. When you choose privacy, you honor the part of yourself that deserves quiet restoration. Instead of allowing outside voices to shape your experience, you take time to process your feelings with intention. This is not about isolation or bottling up your emotions. It's about discerning who truly deserves access to your heart and when. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is keep your story close, speak to God, and listen for His guidance. Trust that God knows every detail of your pain, and He is more than able to speak the word of healing into your heart instantly and powerfully. In practice, embracing privacy means turning inward first before looking outward. It looks like carving out time to pray, to write your thoughts in a journal, to meditate on scripture, or simply to be quiet with your emotions until they settle into something clearer. It looks like creating healthy boundaries so that people cannot easily pry into spaces they have not earned the right to enter. It looks like holding your personal struggles with reverence, knowing that they deserve the gentlest handling, often by your own hands and by the hands of God. Living privately also protects your strength. When you do not scatter your energy telling everyone about your troubles, you keep that energy where it's most useful inside you, sustaining you as you rise. You also avoid the risk of judgment, unsolicited advice, or people's projections clouding your path. Instead of worrying about who knows what and who is thinking what about you, your focus can stay where it belongs, on your growth and on your healing. And let's not overlook the power of privacy to cultivate deeper faith. Every moment spent in quiet trust is an opportunity for divine intervention. The world cannot always understand what God is doing in you, and they do not need to. When you make space for privacy, you also make room for the Holy Spirit to move without interruption. In this sacred silence, you will hear His gentle whispers of encouragement. You will feel His embrace around your most vulnerable places. And you will discover that true strength grows best in stillness. By choosing privacy, you give yourself permission to process your pain in the presence of the one who can truly heal it. That decision will draw you into a deeper, more personal faith. It will teach you to lean into God's voice instead of the voices around you. And it will give you the resilience to rise up again, not because someone told you what to do, but because you heard the quiet, life-giving truth spoken directly into your heart. So embrace the power of privacy. Trust that God sees you. Trust that what grows in secret will eventually bear the most beautiful fruit. Let this quiet be your sanctuary, and know that you will emerge wiser, stronger, and more whole, all because you learn to treasure your own heart enough to protect it. Healing is a sacred and deeply personal process that unfolds most powerfully when we give it the space and privacy it deserves. Too often, we believe that sharing every struggle with others will somehow lighten the burden, as though telling our pain to enough people might make it go away. But the truth is that real healing rarely happens in public. Healing happens when we turn inward and upward, inward to face what truly hurts, and upward to the one who holds the power to restore. The world cannot heal you, only God can. When you choose not to tell everyone your problems, you allow your wounds to rest in God's hands instead of in the hands of those who cannot fully understand or help. Imagine going to a physician with a deep cut and hearing everyone in the waiting room shout their advice: do this, try that, let me see it. Too much exposure only slows the healing. Real restoration comes when you allow the right hand's gentle, skillful hands to tend to what is broken. Spiritually, those hands belong to God. When you speak the word, "Lord, I trust you to make me whole," You invite His divine healing into every raw, tender place. That healing begins in the secret place, where you pour out your heart to God instead of to every ear that will listen. In those quiet moments of prayer, you release your fears, your sorrows, your disappointments. You acknowledge that the wounds of your soul deserve sacred attention. You begin to understand that not everyone needs to know what you are going through for you to recover. You just need to know that God is already working behind the scenes. Healing requires patience, faith, and most of all, privacy to grow strong. When we make our pain public too soon, we often delay our own progress. Other people's reactions can stir up shame, self-doubt, or confusion. Unsolicited advice can dilute the powerful voice of God that you most need to hear. Keeping your healing process between you and God lets you listen clearly for His voice, the one that speaks the word that instantly mends your soul. That word can do what no one else can. It reaches the deep places that human sympathy cannot touch, working gently and precisely where restoration is most needed. As you practice this, you will feel the peace that comes with knowing you are held and seen even when you have told no one else. The process of healing will take on a rhythm of its own. Some days will feel light and hopeful. Others may feel raw and painful. But in that private, protected space with God, every tear matters. Every prayer is heard. Every scar is tended to. Healing is not a spectacle. It is a sacred exchange between your soul and its Creator. And as you embrace this way of healing, you will grow more resilient. You will stand taller because you have faced your pain in a place of safety and trust. You will discover a depth of strength you never knew you had, because that strength was forged in secret, not for show. Healing in privacy is about allowing God to do a deep, thorough work, one that cannot happen under the scrutiny of the crowd. It is about making your heart a sanctuary where the Holy Spirit can speak the word that transforms your wounds into wisdom. So today, choose to let God into those places you might otherwise feel tempted to expose too quickly. Trust that healing happens best when you let it unfold in its own time under His gentle care. Rest in the assurance that you don't have to explain your pain to everyone. You only need to bring it to the one who loves you most. Healing will come, strong and sure, as you lean into privacy, into faith, and into the quiet power of divine restoration. Resilience grows most profoundly in the quiet spaces where you choose to protect your struggles instead of broadcasting them to the world. It's in these sacred, personal moments that you discover your true inner strength, the kind of strength that cannot be given to you by others but must be cultivated within you. Every time you decide not to share your problems with everyone, you're choosing to nurture resilience, to allow it to take root in the soil of your own soul. Resilience is born in privacy because it requires honesty, self-reflection, and the deep assurance that you can lean on God's power to overcome anything. When we quickly turn to people for validation or solutions, we risk becoming dependent on outside approval, waiting for someone to say the right words that will soothe us temporarily. But when you go directly to God with your burdens and leave them at His feet, you allow resilience to grow from a source that will never run dry. The Lord Himself becomes your strength. In these quiet moments, as you speak to Him and listen for His guidance, you grow more capable of facing life's difficulties without fear or panic. Resilience also deepens when we embrace silence. Sharing every worry with everyone around you often amplifies the problem and can make you feel more fragile. Every comment, every well-meaning suggestion can add to the noise and make it harder to recognize your own voice, and especially God's voice in the middle of it all. Choosing to stay silent about your struggles protects you from this noise and allows you to process your pain with clarity. It lets you tend to your emotions carefully, thoughtfully, so that you can stand up again with wisdom rather than in haste. When you practice keeping your problems to yourself and bringing them before God, you will begin to discover a quiet, steady endurance within you. You will realize that you do not need the world's permission to be strong. The Spirit of God living in you is your true source of endurance, And as you speak the word, as you hold on to his promises, resilience will take shape, not a brittle kind of toughness, but a deep, unwavering trust that God is working all things for your good. Resilience is what enables you to face the next challenge without losing yourself in fear or self-pity. It is what allows you to walk into new seasons with your head held high because you know that you have been through fire and come out refined. It is knowing that even when life tries to knock you down, you will rise again because you have learned to go to the right source with your pain. Every time you bow before God in private, you come up a little stronger, a little wiser, and a lot more at peace. And as you build this habit of resilience, you will also inspire those around you not with your complaints, but with your quiet confidence. They may never know the details of what you have walked through, but they will see the grace and strength you carry. They will sense that you don't crumble easily because you have learned to anchor yourself to the one who cannot be moved. So embrace the power of staying silent with your problems. Let this become your training ground for resilience. Trust that every time you give your burdens to God instead of broadcasting them, you are becoming more like Him, patient, steadfast, and secure. That resilience will not only carry you through today, it will prepare you for whatever lies ahead. Inner strength is a quiet, powerful force that grows most profoundly when we choose to guard our hearts and not share every struggle with the world. It is the part of you that becomes unshakable when you decide to lean on God instead of leaning on the fleeting approval or sympathy of others. Too often we dilute our inner strength by telling every detail of our hardships to anyone who will listen. But when we do that, we unknowingly give away some of our personal power. Every problem that we expose before it is healed risks becoming less our own, and the weight of other people's thoughts can burden our healing process. Real inner strength develops when we protect these tender areas and work them out privately with the one who truly understands God Himself. Imagine inner strength like a deep well inside you. Every time you take your pain to God in silence and prayer, that well is dug deeper. It fills with resilience, with trust, and with the knowledge that your Creator is walking with you. When you stop looking around for validation or answers from others, you begin to look up. This is where real strength is formed, not on the surface where everyone can see, but deep within you where God is doing His most powerful work. This inner strength becomes your foundation. It gives you the courage to stand firm when everything feels unstable. It allows you to face challenges with a sense of calm and resolve because you know you don't need to tell everyone your story to feel seen or understood. You already are by the only one who matters most. Every time you take a struggle to God in prayer instead of socializing it, you give Him room to speak healing into those places. You make space for divine wisdom and His perfect timing. That practice will shape your character into someone who is centered, secure, and steadfast no matter what happens around you. And as you grow in this strength, you begin to see that keeping your problems private is not about isolation, it's about discernment. It's about protecting the sacred process of your growth until it's ready to bear fruit. Sometimes people mean well, but can't truly comprehend the battles you fight. They may offer advice that only stirs up more confusion or encourage you to focus on the surface instead of the soul. But when you cultivate inner strength in quiet partnership with God, you begin to feel the difference. You recognize that healing takes patience and depth, not public attention. That strength will not only serve you, it will also overflow into every part of your life. People will sense it even if they don't know your story. They will admire the way you carry yourself with dignity and grace, how you navigate hardships with a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken. And they may never need to know the specifics of your pain because they will already see the proof of your endurance. That is what inner strength looks like, an invisible power that reveals itself in the way you live. So embrace the discipline of keeping your struggles close to your heart and under God's care. Let your pain be worked out in silence, your healing take place where no one else can see, and your victories be celebrated first with Him. In doing so, you will discover a strength that is pure, enduring, and unbreakable. And as you stand strong in this private process, you will realize that you never had to tell everyone your problems to overcome them. God was already there shaping you into someone wiser, braver, and infinitely more powerful than you ever thought possible. Faith is what allows you to move forward, even when you feel burdened by troubles you cannot fully explain to anyone else. It is that deep, unwavering belief that God already knows every detail of your struggle, even the parts you cannot put into words. When you choose to stop telling everyone your problems and instead speak them directly to God, you make a powerful shift. You are placing your confidence not in the sympathy or advice of other people, but in the hands of the one who has the power to change your circumstances. That is where faith comes alive in the secret, sacred space between you and God, where you trust Him enough to do the work that no human can do. Faith is not loud or showy, it is quiet and personal. It is built on those hidden prayers whispered in the dark before dawn. It is cultivated in the choice to stay silent when you could have easily complained, knowing that your Father in heaven hears every word and every tear. The world might encourage you to vent your pain and let everyone know what you are going through, but faith says, God already knows. I'll take my burden to Him. That decision honors God because it acknowledges that you believe in His power more than you believe in people's opinions. And it is this kind of faith that sustains you. When you stop telling everyone about your problems, you leave room for God to show up in your life in His perfect timing. Every detail you hold back and give only to Him becomes part of your personal testimony, proof that you trusted Him when nobody else could see the full story. That trust will change you. It will shape your heart to be strong and resilient, knowing that your safety and peace do not depend on anyone's approval or sympathy. More than that, faith will remind you that you don't need to carry the weight of your troubles alone. Every quiet prayer is an exchange. You give Him your worries, and He gives you His peace. You pour out your fears and receive His strength. This is the divine power that lies in choosing silence. Your faith grows deeper because you are leaning entirely on God. It becomes easier to believe that help is on the way because you have witnessed first, and what it looks like to wait on Him and see Him move. This kind of faith is unshakable because it has been tested in secret and proven true. When you live this way, you will also inspire others in ways they cannot see. They may never know the specifics of your battles, but they will sense the steady confidence that comes from a soul that trusts God more than anything or anyone. They will wonder how you stand so firmly, so full of hope, and that will give you an opening to testify not about the struggle, but about the goodness of God who carried you through it. So embrace the power of faith. Let it grow in the silence of your private moments with God. Let every prayer you do not speak to others become a bold declaration that you believe God can do more than they ever could. This is the kind of faith that heals wounds in secret, rebuilds hearts when nobody is looking, and strengthens you in ways you never thought possible. Trust that God is working even when you do not speak, and know that your faith, rooted deeply in Him, will carry you through every trial into a future full of peace, purpose, and joy. Boundaries are one of the most powerful, yet overlooked, tools for protecting your peace and cultivating true strength. When you choose not to tell everyone about your problems, you are setting a very healthy boundary, one that says your struggles deserve careful handling, privacy, and respect. Far too often, we allow others to enter into our most tender places without hesitation, sharing every detail of our fears, pains, and uncertainties. But your inner world is sacred. Boundaries help you recognize that not every thought, worry, or hardship is meant for public consumption. They remind you that you have the right to safeguard your heart and entrust your pain only to those who can truly help, starting with God Himself. When you establish this boundary of silence, you create a space where real healing can take place. Think of a fragile seed planted deep in the soil. If you expose it too early, pull it up, for every passer-by to examine its roots will never grow strong enough to hold. But left in the dark, nurtured and protected, it will sprout into something beautiful and lasting. That is what healthy boundaries do for your spirit. They allow you to grow without interruption, without unnecessary opinions or outside distractions interfering with what God is already doing in you. Having boundaries is also an act of self-respect. It says that your feelings matter enough to be protected. It acknowledges that while well-meaning people might offer advice or sympathy, they cannot do the deep work that only God can do. When you practice these boundaries, you are honoring the process of becoming whole, honoring your need for quiet time with God, where you can honestly face your emotions without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. This is where true strength is forged, where you discover that your resilience doesn't depend on telling your story over and over again, but on allowing your Creator to speak into it. By keeping your struggles between yourself and God, you gain clarity. The noise of too many voices can cloud your vision and make it harder to discern God's voice. But a well-maintained boundary keeps distractions at bay, creating a sanctuary for your soul where you can hear Him clearly. In that sanctuary, you receive the guidance, comfort, and reassurance you truly need far more than any human could give. And as you grow more comfortable honoring these boundaries, you will find that your relationships with others become healthier too. Because you are no longer seeking validation or rescue outside of God, you show up in your friendships and connections from a place of strength, not neediness. This not only earns you respect, but it empowers you to offer real support to others, grounded in the quiet strength you've cultivated within. Setting these kinds of boundaries is not always easy. It requires courage to go against the norm, especially in a culture that encourages constant sharing. But every time you choose to keep your struggles private and take them first to God, you reinforce the message that you trust Him most. You declare with your actions that He is your first refuge, your truest listener, and your ultimate healer. That choice not only protects you, it also deepens your relationship with Him. And from that sacred boundary, protected space, you will rise up stronger, wiser, and more at peace, knowing that you and God have handled this together. Trusting God is one of the most powerful and freeing decisions you can make, especially when you choose to take your problems to Him instead of to everyone else. Trust is more than a feeling, it is an active practice, a daily commitment to believe that God is capable, caring, and close enough to carry every burden you face. When you trust God with your troubles, you no longer need to spill your fears and struggles to the world. Instead, you hold them close and give them to the one who knows you best. This kind of trust is built on the understanding that God hears you even in your silence, and that His timing and His ways are higher than your own. People can offer sympathy, advice, or even prayers, and those can be kind gestures, but only God can truly transform your situation. Trusting Him means recognizing that human words, while comforting, cannot heal what only the Lord can touch. It requires stepping back from the instinct to explain every hardship and instead bowing your heart before God in quiet faith. This may feel vulnerable at first, especially if you are used to telling your story, but that is exactly where the power lies. Trusting God with what nobody else knows is an act of surrender that opens the door for real, lasting change. Trust is also about patience. It reminds you that not every answer comes immediately, and not every challenge will make sense right away. By bringing your pain to God in secret, you allow Him to work behind the scenes, healing, guiding, and preparing you for what's next. Trust tells you that you do not need to rush ahead or demand instant solutions. Instead, you wait with quiet assurance that your Heavenly Father is moving in ways you cannot yet see. This kind of patience deepens your inner strength and shields your peace. It keeps you grounded even when circumstances remain uncertain because you have placed your faith where it cannot be shaken. And this trust is not passive, it shapes your actions, your decisions, and your mindset. It empowers you to live with a sense of assurance that God is in control. Every morning you wake up, you can say, "Lord, I trust you with this," and that simple prayer will shift your focus back to Him. It will help you lean less on human understanding and more on divine wisdom. Trusting God also frees you from the fear of judgment or rejection that can come when you share too much with people who may not truly understand. When your trust is anchored in Him, you stop looking for validation or rescue from outside voices. You find the strength to stand still in your own story until God brings you through. And as this trust grows, you will see its impact ripple through every part of your life. Problems that once felt too big to bear will feel lighter because they are held by hands much greater than yours. Stress that once kept you up at night will begin to ease as you learn to leave your burdens with God. Even your relationships will improve because you are no longer expecting people to do what only God can. This is the power of choosing to trust Him fully in secret, in silence, and with a heart that believes He is always faithful. By putting your trust in God instead of leaning on the world, you discover the beautiful freedom that comes when you let Him fight your battles. You grow into a person who walks with a quiet strength, knowing that you have taken every fear, every concern, and every tear to the only one who truly understands. And that is where true peace begins. Personal growth is often born in the quiet moments that nobody else sees, especially when you choose not to tell everyone about your problems. Every time you practice restraint and take your struggles to God instead of broadcasting them, you create a sacred space for self-reflection, healing, and true transformation. It is in this space, where there are no distractions and no outside voices, that your personal growth begins to take shape. Without the noise of other people's advice or their reactions, you are left with only your own heart and the presence of God, and that is a powerful environment for becoming the person you were created to be. When you stop telling others your problems, you give yourself the chance to look deeper into what you're feeling and why. You discover the roots of your fears, the source of your pain, and the true desires of your soul. Instead of relying on someone else to give you direction or make you feel better, you learn to listen closely to your own thoughts, to your own spirit, and most importantly to God's voice. This self-awareness is one of the most valuable fruits of personal growth. It allows you to process your challenges in a more honest and direct way, without the need for validation or attention. And as you do this, you'll also notice yourself becoming more emotionally independent. Personal growth means knowing you can navigate hard seasons with resilience and grace. That strength is cultivated every time you choose to stay quiet and reflect before you speak. It grows when you recognize that you don't need to involve others in every hardship because you have the power to handle some things privately with God. This newfound emotional independence will give you confidence, a grounded, peaceful kind of confidence that cannot easily be shaken. Personal growth also means becoming more discerning. The less you speak about your struggles, the more clearly you see which problems truly deserve your focus and which ones do not. You begin to recognize patterns in your thoughts and habits. You become better at making decisions because you've taken the time to listen to yourself first. There is wisdom in choosing silence and depth over impulsive sharing, and this wisdom will begin to touch every area of your life, your work, your relationships, and your dreams. And perhaps most importantly, this kind of growth nurtures your faith. Every time you draw closer to God instead of turning to others, your trust in Him deepens. You will begin to see His hand in your story in ways you never noticed before. Personal growth is closely tied to spiritual maturity. As you grow into someone who leans on God first, you also grow into someone who is more patient, more hopeful, and more at peace. Even your struggles will take on new meaning, becoming opportunities to practice trust rather than reasons to panic. This process is not always easy. Choosing to stay quiet and do the inner work can feel lonely at first, especially if you're used to sharing everything. But in that quiet, you will discover a sense of purpose and strength that nobody can give you. You'll realize that your problems don't need an audience to matter, they matter because they are part of your story. And God is faithfully using every one of them to shape you into someone wiser, deeper, and more whole. That is the true power of personal growth. It blooms not from constant exposure, but from deep inner cultivation. And every time you embrace silence and take your struggles directly to God, you take another brave step toward becoming the best version of yourself.